Hi, and welcome to The Fault Line, a CMG consulting podcast exploring the pivotal moments where business strategy meets real-world pressure. Kim Scribner, my partner in crime, and I are going to spend a little time today reflecting on our journey so far this year. We've had a ton of guests and addressed a bunch of different topics. And Kim, why don't you kick us off with just a few reflections for the conversation?
As I think back to the beginning of this year and kind of you had talked about, here we go, it's 2026. And I was thinking about the pressure of actually developing 52 episodes of this show. And in reflection now, a quarter in, it has brought an immense amount of joy, right? We are so lucky to be able to, engage with each other. We've got a great producer who you typically don't see behind the scenes, Kristen
Pips.
And we also get to engage with great guest speakers. And so we bring folks on who are, whether they're former clients or part of our extended team, and also just other leading, folks in their space in order to teach us and our audience about different topics. And I am not making it up when this is the greatest joy of my week. Being able to record this and bring insights to our audience I feel very lucky to be able to do that.
Oh, incredibly fortunate. And, this is a highlight for me as well on a number of different levels. Obviously, it's terrific to be able to converse with you on meaty and substantial topics on a regular basis. And to the point that you just made, bringing people in who are just so smart, so capable. Sometimes it's intellectual capacity. Sometimes it's, let me tell you about the war stories and the scars that I've gotten. But, just the humanity of all of these different perspectives applied to stuff that, if it goes well, people in our audience can relate to and say, oh, wow, I picked something up from that. Oh, I got an idea here. So it might be a little inspiration. It might be a little insight, might be a trick to try. But, that is a joyful process for me.
So as we record this is our 15th episode of the quarter. So 15th of the year as we lock in on Q1. I did a little just what are some stats from the quarter so far. And I recorded 13 episodes, not 15 episodes for the quarter.
Kim's still working on those analytics.
And this is what we bring to you every week, of which 5 I recorded without Gary. And when I think about the difference of recording with your, podcast co-host and without your podcast co-host, very different feeling. We have great kind of camaraderie amongst each other, and we think both similarly and very different at times, and that helps, I think, bring the episodes to life. My favorite episode was the one where we had Pat Fitzgerald on, and we were talking about AI in go-to-market and how we can use artificial intelligence, specifically Gen AI in this case, in order to kind of be our assistant and help us bring things to market faster. So that was an incredible episode for me to be the interviewer on. And I learned a lot through that episode with him. And I think our audience did as well.
Yeah. And, Pat and I have talked not on that podcast episode, but prior to it, at depth about how Gen AI is influencing and transforming go-to-market for so many organizations out there. And it's incredibly topical and contemporary right now because what had been standard practice is now just becoming table stakes in terms of search engine marketing and some of the search optimization, as AI is now curating things on behalf of buyers, whether it's B2B or consumers. And that flip, the trust people are putting into that curation is profound. And so, yeah, I love that episode as well, being able to listen to, again, a subject matter expert talking shop and providing some insights there. I also, because it's a true passion for me, loved the conversations we've had around growth how to grow a business, what it looks like to change the trajectory of an organization, how people need to buy in and sort of embrace something rather than being compelled into different behaviors. And weaving those themes together, I think, will continue to be part of what we get up to over time. But that's been, a party trick of mine throughout my career, is helping organizations unlock the ability to accelerate, to create that inflection moment, to change the trajectory of their business results. And so, how AI plays into that, for the last month, in March, while you were having one-on-one conversations with very, very smart leaders, all of whom brought this perspective on what it takes when we interrogate data and make insights out of it and then apply it to our activity set. And just weaving all those threads together is the joy for me so far of this year's, Fault Line episodes.
Yeah. We had a really good conversation with Paul Montanari as a guest as well, where we talked about 4 ways to grow a business. And then we followed that up with kind of what that looks like from inside an organization from a human resources perspective when we had Kate McKinnon to join us. And I think we've had the opportunity to share both kind of hardcore, like business type of ideas, but also we've talked a lot about kind of the more squishy things, which, are harder for people to understand. It's sometimes harder for people to invest in also, right? Training your leaders on how to create the environments in which people can be successful is sometimes a squishy area. And so I've enjoyed having both sides of that conversation over the course of the last few episodes.
Yeah, and I don't know. Squishy is an interesting term, right? It sort of implies amorphous or doesn't have substance to it. And for me, that aspect really does have substance. It's more Pillsbury Doughboy than blob, so to
Yes.
speak,
It can turn
because
into a nice crescent roll.
there
Yes.
you go. There you go. You just bake it and delicious.
Yeah.
The aspect of keeping humanity front and center, understanding that humans are emotional critters, coming back to this theme of trust is given in order to be earned, that people choose change. Those to me are some of the elements that distinguish the work we do with clients at CMG as we're helping them achieve their breakthrough growth aspirations, because that's where things can be, differentiated. It is so easy in a world of tons of data to sort of misrepresent or fall prey to the idea that we're in control, when actually, whether it's serving customers or it's rallying teams or it's
Yeah.
affecting kind of a transformation agenda, choice is the fundamental truth that we want to come and tap back into.
Yeah. And I think that choice comes in on we often talk about strategy and execution and how we've got to have them together. And I think our episodes have crossed over both of those sides. But the trust and the choice to contribute to a change or be part of a change is really part of that execution, right? If people don't opt in to a new way of doing things, whether that is new pricing or new products in market or bringing products to market in a different way, then your strategy can really go off the rails.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a bunch of work with different organizations on improving leadership behaviors, helping leadership teams articulate strategy that is more clear and concise so that they can drive execution, and the rest of the enterprise can sort of pick it up and go, okay, we know what to do and we're going to do it. But binding those two things together are all of the behaviors and all of the values that comprise culture. And to me, that's where, as we talk about the left jab, right cross of articulate strategy and be clear and aligned in your view on that, and then execute with excellence, the facilitator, the fuel for that is really all those little moments of truth. How did I respond when somebody challenged me? How did I appreciate somebody, even when, the experiment might have been a failure? What did we learn about it? How do we then drive it forward? And if there's an underlying sort of grounding point, even in, the podcast that we do, the fault line, it's that we know there's tension. between aspiration and reality. And we have to live with that. So don't default to doom and gloom on the one side. Reality is overwhelming. We can't do anything about it. But also don't be so, bright-eyed and naive that you think that every aspiration is going to come true. And that to me, it's figuring out that bridge, dealing with the unexpected, even responding to those moments of betrayal. That is where the magic happens, and what drives me. And again, this is where each and every one of our guests has brought their own flavor and perspective to this. Uh, that makes it, a weekly joyful moment to have the
Yeah.
conversation.
I mean, I think you and I have talked a lot about this even off camera, right? We cannot create those breakthrough moments without change. And we have to understand how individuals, like humans, operate in order to set the stage for that to be true.
Absolutely. As someone very wise said to me and says to me repeatedly, if you want to achieve breakthrough, you got to break stuff. And I try to blend that with my own sentiment of, if you want to change things, the trick is to be a bit rebellious without crossing over into revolting, right? You don't want outright revolution, but you do want to bring this sentiment of challenge of the status quo, of the orthodoxy. And
Yeah,
those two
just
things to
short of
me,
anarchy.
exactly. Yes. Yes. Um, and that again, I think that's one of the areas where you and I can approach things with a very similar sort of starting point philosophically, um, and at the same time, a flexibility to be open. And and this is also one of the joys of doing this podcast is I get to feed my curiosity and learn every time we have a conversation. It's like the aha moment, or oh,
Mhm.
wow, I hadn't thought about that, or somebody just dropped some bit of wisdom that would have helped me 10 years ago, and boy, I'm glad I finally figured it out because they were able to share it.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to talking about next quarter with our guests and for sharing with our audiences?
I think there are a couple of things for me as we look into springtime and getting to mid-year. One is just an acknowledgement that the volatility in our environment continues. Things have not settled down in 2026, and in some ways, we've got new challenges arising. Some of that might be technological, just the pace and advent of AI. There's a ton of anxiety right now among business leaders about, are we doing enough with AI? Is our competition ahead of us? I think that's a topic we may want to touch on at times. I think there's also this idea of, in an environment where, many of our clients are privately held organizations, a lot of them have private equity backing. The truth around private equity right now is hold times for investments are longer. There's not as much fluidity in the marketplace, and that puts a lot of pressure on those operating company leaders to generate organic growth, right? Because the benefits of financial, improvements, of greater rigor, of discipline, those have all taken place in many instances, and now the value add is actually self-starting, and that's a challenge that I think we can help with. How about you? What are you looking forward to?
Um, I'm really excited about an episode that I know we have coming up, which is around decision velocity because of all of the reasons that you just mentioned. I think that we can get stuck in environments like we're all currently experiencing and we don't make decisions. And slowing down our decision making for the perfect decision is not really a thing. And so I'm excited to share with our audiences like, make a decision, be pragmatic about the choices that you're making, but don't just stop. Like, how do you keep going in a way that's tolerable for your organization or for you as an individual, right? So understand your own kind of risk avoidance potentially, and also how you can maximize things at a speed that allows you to do better in the market.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that conversation is going to be a great one for the listeners because slowing down decisions is a choice unto itself. And oftentimes you end up thinking about, like, how am I going to do this? And if perfect gets in the way of progress, there's some issues. I don't want to give
Yeah,
away
you
too
might
much, but
fall on the fault line.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. Wah! So casting your mind forward, and thinking about this, I'm curious as you look at the longer arc of what we're up to now, because we've been doing this since late 2025. We're 13 episodes into 2026 so far. How you see things evolving, and kind of where you place a couple of your hopes as we look forward.
Yeah. So we've had brilliant guests on. We've talked about a lot of really interesting things. I'm looking forward to making it even more practical for our audience. So things that they can walk away from an episode with and actually apply inside their organizations.
Mhm. I think that's great. And it's an opportunity for a shameless plug of the CMG blog as well, at cmgconsulting.com. Check it out because we do have case studies there. We do have, some very sort of applicable insights that people can pick up. And to your point, I think as we continue to roll forward, that's something that will be of even more value and hopefully of even more interest to the people who are tuning in each and every week for us.
Yeah. As we wrap today, thank you for our listeners. We look forward to bringing more interesting content and tell your friends to come and join us as well. Gary and I love bringing guests to the show that can provide insights for you all.
Thank you so much. And that's it for this episode of The Fault Line, CMG Consulting's podcast, where Kim Scribner and I grapple with all of the big questions and pragmatic ideas to address them.